Disturbing statements attributed to Muhammad, a McDonald's worker accused of fatally stabbing her manager, have resurfaced following a major development in the case. A critical court hearing recently took place, during which surveillance video of the alleged attack was shown and her full police interview was made public. The situation escalated dramatically when reports claimed that a family member of the victim entered the courtroom carrying a knife, causing widespread disruption. We're still going to unpack everything that happened. Now, you may think that a relative of a woman who was allegedly stabbed to death by a coworker showing up at the defendant's court hearing with a reported weapon, that would be the wildest update, the wildest allegation in a story that we have been covering for months? Maybe not. There is so much to talk about right now in the incredibly disturbing and bizarre case of 27-year-old Afeni Muhammad. Now, this all purportedly started with Muhammad ranting on social media about her manager, Jennifer Harris, at a McDonald's in East Point, Michigan.
She's a bully. I'm telling you. She's a bully. Somebody will have to do something about that. It's not funny. It's not fair. It isn't funny at all. So, you know, she could keep being a bully if she wants to, but that is going to catch up to her.
But this ended with Harris, a 39-year-old mother of 6, dead. And authorities allege that on July 10th, Muhammad gets into an argument with Harris after she said she was sent home early. And according to investigators, Muhammad left, sat in her car for a while, came back with a knife, and when officers arrived, Harris had reportedly been stabbed up to 15 times, 13 to 15 times. And a customer with a gun had apparently stepped in to stop Muhammad from fleeing. That's the allegation from authorities. Now, Harris, she was rushed to the hospital, but later died from her injuries. So Afeni Muhammad was charged with first-degree premeditated murder, we're talking life without parole, and carrying a dangerous weapon with unlawful intent. But now we have to talk about what just happened the other day in court during Muhammad's preliminary hearing. So whether there's enough evidence for the case to move forward. Is there sufficient probable cause that she committed the crime? And whether this case should be remanded over to circuit court. There is a lot to discuss, including someone being taken into custody. All right, so let me bring in criminal defense attorney Neil Rockind to talk more about this. Neil, thanks so much for taking the time. A lot to get into. I want to start with maybe one of the most wild things to happen, okay? It's being reported that you have this relative of the victim, Jennifer Harris, who was taken into custody at the courthouse on Friday. So according to Fox 2, Detroit News, WXYZ, ABC7, this relative, possibly Harris's teenage daughter, allegedly tried to bring knives into the courtroom, that this relative was taken into custody. The hearing had to be paused. The report is that after seeing the surveillance footage that was played in court, namely the footage of the defendant allegedly walking into that McDonald's and proceeding to attack Harris, that this family member walks out of the courthouse, goes into the parking lot, and allegedly grabs 2 knives from a car. Now, it's being reported that a relative wrestled one of those knives away from her, but she was able to get back into the courthouse with 1 knife, and that she was tackled by police. The prosecutor's office is now weighing potential charges here. Talk to me about that in the sense that, look, you know, the Harris family is obviously quite emotional, particularly during this kind of evidence. Have you ever seen anything like that happening before?
I have never seen a case in which a relative of the victim entered into or tried to smuggle into a courthouse weapons to potentially injure, you know, whether it be the judge or the defendant or others. I haven't seen that. I've seen plenty of cases, as have you, where victims or relatives of victims have been in the courtroom and have lunged at or gone after or been aggressive with the accused. I mean, the Larry Nassar case comes to mind, where there was one of the victim's relatives, I think the father of one of the victims, tried to charge at Nassar, and the police had to subdue him. So we've seen many scenes play out like that, but nothing quite like this. It's helpful, Jesse, to also understand the size of this courthouse.
Yeah.
The courthouse in East Point is small. It's cramped. There is a one door in and out that leads through security. once you get past the security entrance, everything is out in the open, and there's essentially one single courtroom. So it is a really cramped, very tightly congested area. So if one's emotions are really high from the court proceeding, I mean, there isn't a lot to diffuse, a lot of time or space to allow yourself or to allow someone to sort of diffuse their energy. I mean, the parking lot is right outside. It is cramped and tiny. And so I can just imagine how this woman's emotions sort of overwhelmed her, and she tried to sneak in some weapons into the courthouse.
Now, by the way, talk about that surveillance footage of Muhammad allegedly stabbing Harris being played in court. Detroit News reporting that the Harris family, again, incredibly emotional, but it was Harris's mother who apparently collapsed on the floor. I think that just goes to the emotional weight of this evidence, but how much impact this is going to have on the legal case, too. I mean, it's not every day that you have footage of a crime either about to be committed or being committed.
You're so right. We rarely catch the moment, right? We oftentimes see situations where people are going into the scene of a crime or leaving the scene of a crime. But here you actually see the crime. So seeing your relative actually killed, I mean, those images will just never leave. They will haunt the victim's family. And I'm going to give you one more. It's going to haunt jurors. You try to pick a jury in a case like this, and they're going to say, you're going to tell them, you're not just going to hear about the murder. You're not just going to hear about the aftermath of it or what led up to it, but we're going to show it to you. You're going to actually see a murder. We watch things like this on television, in movies, but we know they're simulated. We know that they're acted out and they're meant to look real, but this is the real thing. You're going to watch somebody die in real time.
Now, talk about things that are being played.
I mean, my stomach is turning just thinking about that, Jesse, as I'm just sitting here thinking about how that would feel to watch that.
It's awful. It's awful. And it's also awful to be thinking about, you know, looking at how terrifying that scene was. I mean, if the allegations are true, somebody in a mask carrying a knife, it's hard to grasp. Now, talk about the things that are being played in court. How could I not mention Afeni Muhammad's interview with police? Okay, now let me lay it out here a little bit. After being read her rights, she apparently signs a waiver of those rights, and she seems to appear to speak voluntarily with detectives. And this is when she gets into a lot. So first she talks about how she apparently felt bullied by Harris, who made her clock out of work. She also accused her of making racist statements to her.
Did she make you clock out or nothing?
Yes.
How many times? Once?
It happened 6 minutes the third time this week.
Third time this week? And can you tell me why do you think she's doing that?
I think she was doing that because I had spoke up to her.
Has this lady, has she been bullying you for a while, or is this just a 1 or 2 or 3 times?
She's been bullying me for a while.
Does she do that sort of employment?
She has been bullying. It was one of the girls she recently stopped messing with. Because now I guess I turned out to be what she wanted to bully. But she has been bullying her for a very long time. She played her little gangster music, and she don't like how I play classical music. She's selling it for me. Because I'm not like her, and she's like, she was always saying comments like, I thought we all supposed to look out for each other, saying thank her, and then she would say things for like other coworkers, and then the day before yesterday, she talked about me to one of the other coworkers.
And then she arguably confesses.
Where'd you stab her at?
I'm curious.
Did you want to kill her?
Yeah.
Now, if you couldn't hear that when asked, did you want to kill her? She appears to say, I did. And you know what else is wild? In the interview, she appears to demonstrate on the detective how she allegedly stabbed Harris multiple times. The neck area, the chest. It is, to say it's chilling is an understatement, okay? To say it's chilling is an understatement. And when asked, how did she feel after stabbing Harris?
What about now? Do you feel any more literally?
like you said, like.
Do you feel bad about it? Like remorseful that you did it, or you feel
I don't feel like
I feel relieved that you did it.
I feel better.
Feel better?
Yeah, but I'm not a cold person. That's why it sounds crazy to understand that. I'm here on.
Neil, my gosh, we talk about how police interviews with defendants can be really bad for a criminal defendant. Does it get worse?
No. This is a Hiroshima or a Nagasaki on the scale of awful, dangerous, horrible, consequential interviews. Look, she's painted herself in. The danger with social media is that people talk about their feelings. They're so open and share their feelings, and they allow themselves to be so raw in the present moment, where she said, I'm going to do this, and this woman is my target. And then she goes and does it. And then afterwards, she's caught by the police, and she says, this is what I did. I mean, besides herself, Jesse, besides taking a red ribbon and putting it on her and saying, here, prosecutor state, I've gifted myself as a defendant to you. I mean, she's essentially wrapped herself in a bow as someone who was guilty.
Now, I'm going to get into a little bit what her defense attorney said during the preliminary hearing, okay? We'll talk about it, see if it was effective, maybe gives a glimpse of where they're going to be going, talk about it. But let me just say, Macomb County Assistant Prosecutor Kumar Palepu, this is what he said in court as we're trying to summarize what the main theory is of the prosecution based on, you look at the police interview. Quote, there was no argument, there was no talking. When she was interviewed, she admitted that when she went in there to confront her, to kill her, that she intended to kill Jennifer Harris. And when she did this, it wasn't in a manic state. It wasn't some emotional outburst. She came in calmly to do all these things. She was prepared. Again, I'm going to get into what the defense is in a minute. But Neil, he's basically saying, listen, there's no mental health defense. There's no emotional outburst defense here, right?
Yes. He's saying that this fits the classic definition of premeditated, deliberative, and deliberated murder. That she had a motive, she thought about it, she went into went into her place of work or with a mask, so she had the time to actually deliberate and attempt to intentionally conceal her identity. And that she went inside very calmly, sought out her target, and she ended up attacking her target, the very person she mentioned in the video, and that there was no sign of any sort of, she wasn't thinking that this person was a religious figure, hallucinations or historical figures weren't speaking to her, there weren't voices in her head. She was acting out the plan that she announced on her Instagram. And then as she acted it out, she deliberated over it and premeditated about it and then fulfilled it. I mean, he's making out a case for classic first-degree murder.
Now, I want to play something here from her defense attorney, Joshua Jones. And he seemed to suggest, as for why the prosecution didn't meet its burden to bind the defendant over for trial, so basically saying that during the course of this preliminary hearing, there's not enough evidence, there's not enough probable cause. For count one, first-degree premeditated murder, Jones appears to argue, well, there are certain aspects to this that don't necessarily show that she bought a knife or wore those clothes with the plan to kill. So seemingly trying to distinguish between first and second degree murder.
But I don't want the court, nor do I want the facts to be insinuated that it was bought for this purpose, for this incident. It's a hooded mask. And again, I'm just identifying some, I don't want to say, clarifying some things on what we heard in facts, because it was very clear that it was some sort of zip-up hood that went over the face. It's not a separate mask that was, bought for this purpose. It was attire, specifically because we're talking about the difference between, at least for today's purposes, first and second degree. And there's that identification of premeditation or preparation to get you to first degree.
And look, this is maybe a glimpse of what they may try to argue. Because look, when it comes to second-degree murder in Michigan, it's all other kinds of murder, and they're really looking at what the punishment should be. Because yes, it could be for second-degree murder punishable by life in prison, but it also says, or any terms of years in the discretion of the court trying the same. So there's more room here for a lesser punishment. That's why they're trying to go for second degree here, or at least try to entertain that idea. But, oh, by the way, real quick, the testimony of this witness I thought was really interesting. The truck driver, this customer at the drive-thru who reportedly took out a gun, chased the assailant, allegedly Muhammad, even testified that the hoodie came down as he was chasing her, showed her face, anyway, catches up to her, holds her at gunpoint, and she allegedly says, "I have a little brother to live for." And according to him, she said, "They kept bullying me." Neil, another important witness that I didn't even mention before.
I mean, I don't know how many nails in the coffin we can identify, but there are 15, 20. Each of these is a dispositive piece of evidence against the defendant. Look, we defense lawyers are sometimes given a very bad set of facts. And our job, whether we like it or not, whether we like the facts of the case or not, is to try to defend the accused as best we can. Yeah. We come up with arguments that we think at least will test the state's case. And so I don't find much of the evidence that we've discussed so far, Jesse, to be very favorable to the defendant. They may try to pick at little things here, and I hate to just sort of to dump on her, but this is a terrible case to have to defend. I do not envy her lawyer in any respect.
The judge says the defendant possessed a long chef's knife, admitted that she brought the knife for purposes of stabbing the victim, stabbed the victim with the weapon, and found that there was probable cause that the defendant carried a dangerous weapon with the intent to use unlawfully against another person. The people met their burden there. So in other words, for both counts, they're binding over to circuit court for further proceedings in front of a different judge. Neil, talk to me about that. It's a lower bar there. It's not surprising the judge ruled this way, right?
It's not. The Michigan's preliminary examination hearing is really the requirement that there be probable cause established to support a charge. It's the lowest burden that we have. It's nowhere near beyond a reasonable doubt. It's nowhere near clear and convincing evidence. It's nowhere near even a preponderance of the evidence. They don't have to show that it's more likely than not that she is guilty of these crimes. All they have to do is show that there's some evidence for which to reason to believe that she's guilty of these two offenses. So it's a very low burden. But I think what the prosecution did during the hearing was lay out very much, kind of gave us a preview of what the facts of the case are going to look like. And you can imagine, and there are some cases that we've seen where a prosecutor lays out their case in district court, attempts to even to meet this low burden, and they barely get over the hump. It's very just narrowly make it over. And we begin to sort of envision what's the trial going to look like, because we can't see how it's going to be much better than this. This, though, is a case that not only did it clear the burden, clear that low burden, but we look and think, okay, if this were the only evidence the state introduced at a trial, would this be a compelling case that she premeditated, in other words, thought about? That she thought about, even for more than a second, that she thought about what she was going to do, and that she deliberated over it, that she had some time to reflect and think about it. And so the answer is, even if this was the state's case, I think that they would have even if the burden was just met in district court, this would still likely be a very compelling case at a trial beyond a reasonable doubt.
So now it goes to Macomb County Circuit Court. There is an arraignment scheduled for December. We will see if this heads towards trial. There's obviously going to be motions that are made beforehand, but this is, by all accounts, proceeding to the next stage. Just a very disturbing, sad case. Neil Rockind, thank you so much for taking the time. Good to see you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.